Well,
Well,
y'all can just call me the Queen of Democracy.
can we?
Stephanie Sterling, Queen of Democracy. I'll explain why.
Okay.
Queen of democracy. I like that we have a monarch heading up our democracy.
Absolutely. By royal appointment, and certainly not by an electoral one. The Queen of Democracy is I.
This is a demonarcracy. Does that work?
Demogocracy? There's something there.
There's
Between
something
us,
there.
Yeah.
we'll come up with something. Possibly
anyway,
by
you're-
episode 500.
Right, you're the queen of it,
Oh, the
though.
Queen of Democracy. Now, bear in mind, what I have to say here involves one of the ultimate, white liberal things of taking credit for what black voters have done.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's
Yeah.
always part and parcel of taking credit for landmark achievements, which I'm going to do because, as listeners may know, there's been an overturn after, 14 years
14
of
years, yeah.
conservative rule, and by the end of it, it was a fucking rule. Labour are in, which is not great. Bunch of tough, coddling fucks.
It's the palette-swapped conservatives at this point, but, you know...
It's stuck in my craw, but I voted tactically, all of that shit. But what this means is I, a British-American citizen, have been part of, and let's face it, instrumental in the overthrow of two conservative regimes. Because I voted in the, the 2020 election, or whichever one it was. The one that got that old fucker in who's slightly less racist than the racist that was in power before. I voted in that one, and I voted in this one, and both times... What's the common thread here? Both times, overthrow, freedom for all, except for all of the oppressed people who will remain oppressed because the sitting governments will do fuck all, because they're relatively ineffectual. I mean, I'm not saying I'm disillusioned as someone who did vote Democrat, saw them get in, and then saw trans rights somehow erode even more under them. You know, not saying I'm disillusioned, but...
No, I don't think it's disillusioned to say that, the supposedly left-wing major parties in both of those countries right now are not actually left-wing in any major sense,
No.
and really it's a very, very minor victory in anything, but, you take your wins where you can get them. You take the wins!
As I said, after the American election, which pissed off one listener who's constantly going to bat for Joe Biden, the UK has joined the US in currently having a government that is the difference between one that's actively trying to kill you and one that doesn't mind if you die.
I sort of take it that, the liberal perspective is we like things the way they are.
Yeah.
And the conservatives are we think things should be worse.
Pretty much. It's the
Yeah.
difference between apathy and antagonism, and I will take apathy if I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I almost didn't vote at all. It's really stuck in my craw. I was at Tidal Wrestling this Sunday, and, I've talked before about, the landed gentry, Benji and Xeonox and guys like that. Heels who play Tory characters. Great gimmick if you can stomach playing that role. Always gets amazing heel heat. I love wrestling the landed gentry because it's the easiest night I can have. I don't have to work hard at all to get cheered to fuck by punching a Tory. There is another wrestler that historically has had a Tory gimmick, probably the most prominent one in the UK. His name is Spike Trevay. An incredible talent, currently wrestles as the Vulture Spike Trevay. And over time, he has been reducing the Tory stuff and really sort of pushing that Vulture gimmick as just this sort of opportunist kind of character. And At the show, people were all chanting, like, you know, the usual things, like Tory scum, you know, where's your party gone? Oh no, they were chanting, where's your Sunak gone? They were just, where's your Sunak gone? Where's your Sunak gone? Like, lots of fun for all the family. And Spike Trivay, who had, because I was ring announcing, I was doing, like, hosting the show, and he'd already said, like, because I collect all the wrestlers' announcement details, and he already said, like, don't add any of the Tory stuff today. At the end of the show, he grabbed the mic and he went, I am fucking sick of this shit. I have never once said I am Tory. I was disillusioned by Labour, so I voted Green. I have never voted Tory in my fucking life. And the crowd just fucking erupted. Great fun. Even the wrestling heels are denouncing the Tory party. Oh,
wow.
God. Liz Truss had a face like a slapped ass. Pork market. Pleased with that. What's his face? Jacob Rees-Mogg out. And Stephanie Sterling is streaming on Twitch again. Twitch TV/Jim Sterling. So democracy is back. Freedom is back. Yes, we voted in a man who, the morning of the election, said that people like us should have less freedom and shouldn't be able to use public facilities. Yes, they're gonna keep Brexit. Yes, they're gonna do as close to fuck all as possible. But where's your Sunak gone? And I'm streaming it again. So, hey, happy days are not here. Welcome to
Podquisition. Sometimes we talk about video games here occasionally.
Yeah, it's predominantly a politics podcast.
Yeah, you know us, famous politics enjoyers.
Absolutely.
Us.
European politics. Hey, how about those French elections, eh? I won't kick us off on all of that, mostly because I don't know them very well.
I can tell you a little bit about those French elections. The short version, right-wing party was looking to do real fucking well, and the centre-to-left parties went, you know what we're going to do to stop the right wing getting as many votes as it seems like they're gonna?
We're gonna do what we as the French always do when faced with, you know, a fascist uprising.
What, mount an awesome resistance?
Basically, the short version, as I understand it, is they looked at all of their candidates in all of their areas and went, look, if you're in third place, we're going to ask you to drop out so that your votes go to other left-wing candidates, so that we don't split the vote further.
And it worked.
So the left and centre vote gets condensed rather than, you know, being split, and we have a unified fight against the right. And it fucking worked. It did pretty effectively.
Yeah, it somehow worked. Politicians worked together for a greater good. And the result was so many videos on social media of fascist voters crying.
Yeah, who knows how that alliance is going to go long term, but, you know, some degree of let's do whatever it takes to unify against the right was successful in this instance.
There are serious divisions, like serious divisions among these left-ish parties and left-wing parties, communist parties, like huge divisions. The fact that they were able to set aside these things temporarily to ensure that their domestic government would be able to meet those challenges that they have with each other is remarkable. Like, we don't see this in a lot of Western leftists.
Genuinely, you know what this is? They pulled off the thing that the right globally has been doing for fucking decades, which is the, I don't care if I disagree with you, the main point is that our side wins.
Yep.
And it's very rare you see centre-left-ish parties fucking do that step and go, we don't agree, but we don't want them. We're better together than with them. Yep. And I'm like, I'll give it the win where it goes.
Yeah, honestly. You know, I think it's proof that what we needed across Europe was some sort of reform. No, maybe not reform. Maybe not reform precisely.
Speaking of standing up against oppressive forces, I beat that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC last night.
Congratulations.
Oh, mate, I'm so glad because every time we talk about it, I keep getting texts.
Yeah.
I've not dropped making fun of Dr. Disrespect. As I said on stream last night, if you're going to call trans people groomers and then you turn out to have been a wrong and with the little ones, you deserve everything you get, you can't. But please tell us about that Elden Ring.
So, here's the thing about that Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Now that I have finished it, I have thoughts about it. So, generally speaking, I think it is relatively accurate to say that a lot of the bosses in this DLC, they do lean a bit towards the very fast, quite aggressive on you kind of enemy design. And I know that that's not your vibe, Steph, in terms of bosses.
I tend to struggle a lot with those.
Yeah, but they feel like they are designed for you to be using the Mimic tier to draw aggro, and it feels like, while they are very aggressive and very fast, it's easier to draw aggro away from you and onto an Ash summon than it was in the base game, at least in my experience. That seems to be the balance, is bring in your little ghost buddy with you and use them to get your breathing moments to get your big hits in. The DLC really, 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 really does incentivize you going and tracking down all of the tree fragments that are the unique DLC upgrade reward, particularly to get through the last boss. You are gonna want to get a good percentage of those upgrade materials hidden around the world. But a lot of the areas those are hidden in are fucking obtuse to find. Like, I am genuinely of the belief that if you're going to play the DLC, the best thing you can do for your sanity, if you come up against a roadblock and you're like, okay, I need to be a bit stronger, I need more of those tree fragments, just search a fucking YouTube video, and when one of them, the video shows you to get a fragment in a place you're like, I have no idea how the fuck to get there, Google how the fuck to get there, because there are several areas in this game no one is finding naturally and without fucking assistance. I really enjoy a lot of the enemy designs in this. A lot of the enemy designs that feel like almost goofy in a fun way that offsets their terrifying attack patterns. One of my favorites is a fairly early one. You know those dragon costumes that you see at like Chinese New Year where it's a couple of people in a costume that's like draped over the multiple of them?
Yeah, I like those.
What if it was two little lion men in a lion one of those costumes?
I'd probably squee.
It's adorable and terrifying in equal measure, and I kind of love that mix. There were some fun new weapons in the DLC. I've been particularly enjoying these perfume bottle weapons that are like little handheld bottles that you swing them around and like puffs of gas that are either like poison gas or electrified gas come out, and you can use them for really interesting, very wide area of effect damage. They've been kind of fun to play around with. The final boss of the DLC is an absolute fucking asshole to beat. It is a boss that feels deliberately designed to go, hey, we might never give you a harder challenge in Elden Ring than this, because this is the final fight of the DLC and we're probably not doing more DLC. We're gonna make it the fucking worst. So that you know, if we never get another chance to be mean to you, we're gonna make this our chance to be really fucking mean to you. The first half of the fight, painful, not the worst, manageable. The second half of that fight, basically never an opportunity to safely fight. My strategy, to talk in vague terms, my strategy I ended up using to beat this boss was, I got the biggest, heaviest, strongest shield I possibly could that allowed me to, like, still attack from behind it with a little rapier. Leveled the shield up as best I could so I could just fucking tank every single fucking hit that came in. Holy damage was the only thing that was still hitting me, so my armor was all about negating holy damage. Pumped up my stamina regain as much as possible to be like, as I'm blocking hits with my big shield, it's not eating up my stamina too much. And I got this little rapier, and I applied bleed and rot to it, and I just hid behind my huge shield, stab, 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 stab with my little rapier, as this boss is just barreling down on me, going, okay, cool, if I get an opening, I purely use it to drop the shield for like 3 seconds to get some stamina back, and then I hide back behind the shield, poke, 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 poke. And after like 10 hours of attempts, I beat that final boss. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit. I felt so fucking proud after beating it. For all of the ways that final boss is so cheap, I did feel a real sense of accomplishment for getting over it. At least in part because I was playing it on stream, and I'd managed to apply Scarlet Rot, which is your like damage over time status effect, to him in the first half of the fight, before the phase shift. And people kept telling me, you definitely can't apply Rot to him in the second half. Like, you're throwing all your Rot magic at him, and you're stabbing him with your little Rot sword, he's not getting Rot on him. And I was like, I am convinced I can do it. So I did like 10 hours of attempts, and the attempt I won was the first time I did enough rot damage in the second half to apply rot to him. The very time that my plan worked, and I needled him enough times that he started getting damage over time, and I could just sort of hide back a bit and turtle under my shield, was the time I won. And I felt so fucking proud, because I was like, all of you who doubted, I got the status effect on him, and because that status effect does like percentage of boss damage rather than like overall damage, I just watched his health melt, and I was like, I knew I had a plan, and I just had to get really good at hide and stab. So yeah, for all of my, like, problems, I have, like, technical problems, I could say, with this DLC. I think that it's a little obtuse with finding certain areas, more so than the base game. I think it's, the more vertical map isn't a benefit to the game. It makes it harder to find areas that should be relatively easy to find. All that kind of melted away. I beat that final boss, and, like, a day later I'm still riding that high of, oh, I fucking love Elden Ring. So yeah, might not be to your playstyle tastes, might be a bit cheap and a bit, you gotta have a walkthrough open while you're doing it. Now that I've beaten that boss, I'm like, nah, I fucking love it though. I'd come back if they did more. What about you both? Either of you played anything this week?
I played a game that also expects 10 hours of you for stuff.
Yeah.
So there's this game called The First Descendant that came out a couple of days ago. I'm just going to read you the first portion of the review that I've drafted.
Mm-hmm.
The First Descendant is fucking foul. After playing for hours to unlock the series of missions that would allow me to gather the materials to craft the character I wanted, then completing all of them to earn said materials, I learned they all had sub 50% drop rates. Of course, they hadn't dropped for me, requiring me to complete all the missions again for a mere chance to gather them. After all that, I'd have to wait hours for the crafting process to complete and the character to become playable. So instead, I just decided to never play this malicious little twat of a game again. Despicable game. Another free-to-play looter-shooter that nobody has asked for.
No.
It looked at a saturated market of all these fucking live service shooters doing the exact same thing and thought we needed another one of those. Let's have another one. And that is what it is. It is another one. The best way I've described it mechanically as a game is mildly inept. Everything does work, but it's all slightly shit. You know, the shooting is fine. It's just very mundane. It's again one of these looter shooters that just, where the loot is just machine guns and SMGs and shotgun, like just normal guns. So there's no fun loot. And it drowns you in so much of it. Like, 5 minutes of playing and you've got like 20 fucking guns to sort through. And you don't even really think about it because you just pick number go up. So, yet again, like, games in the past couple of years have completely destroyed any meaning to loot. It's all just trash. You can't get attached to anything. Even with games that let you, like, have a favourite gun and level it up as you out-level it, normally have really prohibitive things. Like, the levelling up thing in this game needs materials that I don't know how to fucking get them. The game is really bad at communicating, like, where to get stuff. Everything needs half a dozen different materials. And when you craft something, it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to 10 hours. And I mean 10 real-world hours. And a lot of this will be familiar to anyone who's played all this stuff, but that's part of the point. Looking at the premium store, I'll just read the different menus, bearing in mind every menu has pages and pages of premium items. Battle Pass, Descendant, that's the name of that's what they call characters. Ultimate Descendant, Limited Skin, Premium Skin, Common Skin, Common Cosmetic Items, Support Material, Convenience, that's the boosters, and Makeup. All the makeup is also premium content. It's got the usual mobile shit of batches of fake currency that go from $5 to batches of ones costing $100. There are items in this game that will cost triple-digit figures. And what is it about the arrogance of these games that it is always subpar, mediocre trash that has the sheer fucking nerve to believe it should be charging way more overall than an actual well-made, high-quality, finished game. And this one feels like unfinished. There are whole menus that don't share the aesthetic of the other menus and are just plain white with drop-down boxes. Utter garbo. It's disgusting. It's got every dirty trick in the book. What a shame. The double jump sometimes doesn't work. Skills that are projectile-based have big hitboxes, so if you're even just a bit near a wall, or enemies are up a ramp, and there are a lot of inclines in this game, you're basically guaranteed to not hit them. And the range on stuff is pathetic. There is so much missing. It's one of those games that have melee attacks that sort of, like, awkwardly thrust you forward, so you'll just, like, shoot past what you were trying to hit. So frustrating to play. Because so much stuff is slightly inept. It all basically works, but it's always constantly, like, fucking up, dropping the ball. Visually unappealing. It's Destiny light, like so many of these games. Fucking mouse cursor on a console again. Fuck that shit. Is there anything else? It's just avaricious, vicious, nasty, predatory shit. Again. A game no one asked for, and let's face it, probably won't be alive in a year. And that's the best case scenario. Also, imbalanced. The various characters have vague classes, you know, support, attack, that kind of stuff. There is a class called Speed. There's a character called Bunny. And players using that are so fast that if you get together for, like, a story-based dungeon, which are basically just it's a big, long, linear corridor that ends in a boss fight, they will speed ahead. Bunny players will speed ahead so fast. If you're not using Bunny, you won't see enemies until you catch up at the boss fight at the end. Let alone get a chance to shoot one of them. You won't even see them. You're just mopping up the meaningless, nebulous loot drops that the other player left in their wake. And enemies are so fucking easy that there's no punishment for running ahead. They won't need me. Dreadful. I'll leave it there. Dreadful.
Doesn't sound great.
No.
What about you, Comrade? You been playing anything this week?
Well, on the stream this week with Linda, we played Bokura at your suggestion.
Ooh, how are you finding it?
Deeply unsettling.
Right?
Very, very upsetting. This game is very upsetting. I don't think you carried across how deeply, deeply upsetting Bokura is. From the jump, too. It's not even, like, just the horrifying visuals later in the game. The game gut punches you. If you are of a certain age, I would say early 30s or later, and you have the experience of Bokura in its opening moments and talking about how you are literally wasting your life away consuming pointless media that keeps you just distracted enough. Like, I felt very, very attacked by this game right at the outset. Linda and I were looking at each other like, this is us, I don't like this.
Look, this game has some stuff to say, and I didn't want to lessen the impact of this game going, hey, 0 to 100, here we go.
Yeah, it does not fuck around. It's very good. The writing's excellent. The scenarios, the puzzles are very, it's very cleverly implemented, and it takes a little while to come to that understanding that the thing that you are seeing isn't the thing that they are seeing.
It takes a minute to twig, like, not only will the thing look different, but I might not fundamentally see part of it.
Yeah.
Because, like, those early examples are like, oh, I see a mattress to land on, you see a big cuddly bear to land on. We see the same thing, but it looks different.
Right, there's still sort of a one-to-one element of, these are still basically the same items in different ways, but once you get to the point where you are seeing completely different objects.
Yeah. Like, an early example that, like, took some internalizing was, one player might be like, oh, can you move that chain back to the side so I can grab onto it and get carried across? What chain?
Yeah.
Oh, that box on the floor is connected to a chain that I can't see, is it?
Yeah.
Shit like that.
Yeah, and so figuring out how to communicate objects in space where the geography could be completely different is an interesting challenge. And the way all of this very not quite ham-fistedly achieves using the metaphor. Just like it is one step below clubbing you over the head with it, which I appreciate because it doesn't feel like you're being talked down to necessarily by it.
Yeah,
very, very good. I'm really enjoying it. We're about 2 hours in, and as much of a pain in the ass as it was to set it up, and it was a pain in the ass to set it up.
Yeah.
I bought it on Switch, thinking, oh, well, I'll play on Steam and she can play on the Switch.
Yeah, I hadn't checked if that was doable, but it seemed like it should be. Is it not?
Well, it should be. Yes, you're correct. It should be under, all circumstances being what they need to be. Yeah, that's fine because this is a peer-to-peer game. Like you're using a room code to connect to another user through some small server, that's just handling this exchange, this handshake. And so the Nintendo Switch shouldn't need to use Nintendo Online services to accomplish this goal, but it does. And I don't pay for Nintendo Switch Online. I don't pay for multiplayer. Multiplayer is not a thing that, and then, this should be able to be done locally. What I wound up doing is installing it on an old laptop on Steam and playing it in offline mode. And that worked. But awkward. But it was nice to be able to do it in the same room with the person that I'm playing with.
I think that is the optimal way to do it if you can, to be sat near enough that like the gasp of oh, what was that you have no idea what's coming from is right there happening. Yeah,
like it could work over mic, but it's I think would be so much more effective to do it in person, because that is it, especially when, like I had my displays in the office arranged so that we couldn't see each other's screen at all. And then I had it streaming. So if you go back the VOD, I'll keep the VOD up on the channel if you want to check it out and see what it's like to see two people do this. But I did have both of our screens shared on the stream. So it was interesting. And I'm going to go back and look at it. I got the forest and she got the wasteland. And I think that was in everyone's best interest, because she really didn't need to see a bunch of what was there. She has, she gets uncomfortable with that, and that's fine. And machines are not that. So
I would say I think the machine half is for the most part, the easier side to see.
Yeah.
There's less flesh-based body horror occurring.
Yeah, but it is very, very effectively conveyed body horror. The animations across the board in this are exceptional.
I've not seen them, but I've had... Because I played the robot half, and I was having Jane describe to me, like, oh, when the platform comes out of the robot dog's back, that's... The description of the body horror spine incident that was occurring is like... I think I got off a little lightly here with,
You did.
Death as a cold mechanical thing.
Yeah, you did. Wow. Yeah, fascinating. Great game. Looking forward to seeing the resolution of it, and I have some thoughts about where that might be headed. I'm very excited to see if it goes the way I'm thinking or if it goes some other way.
I haven't finished it yet, but I similarly have my suspicions about what it's trying to get at and where it might be going. I'm very curious to see the landing in action.
Yep. But it's very, very enjoyable experience for a very affordable price.
Yeah.
It had originally come with a friend pass, at initial release. But when they wanted to make it available for Switch, they had to change some things, and so now you do have to have 2 copies of it. But they cut the price of the game in half to compensate for that. And it's less than $3 on Steam right now, if you're interested.
Yeah.
So I would say it's definitely worth a look if you have the means. Because the other thing is, I think you need to play it with someone that you know really well.
Yes. Someone that you're not going to get frustrated having communication mismatches with.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much what I played this week.
My main other thing I've been playing this week, 2 connected things. I've been playing more Deep Rock Galactic, both the new board game that's happened, but also the new season of the video game. So I've talked about Deep Rock Galactic before. It is a sort of co-op. You are a bunch of dwarves going on mining missions. You are one of 4 little archetypes of dwarf. Usually it's go mine a bunch of resource, don't get murdered by space aliens, make a mad dash and get back before the escape pod leaves. The board game version of it that is recently released, that my lovely wife Jane ordered and recently arrived, honestly really impressed with it. I'm usually not a fan of board game adaptations of video games because a lot of them struggle to walk a line. They will either end up feeling not particularly like the video game they're based on, or go a little too far in terms of trying to replicate absolutely every single mechanic to the point that they are not fun to play because you are micromanaging a bunch of numbers that the video game would handle for itself, and not, as a result sort of lose the flow and pace of the experience they're trying to emulate. And the Deep Rock Galactic board game, I think, does a really good job of walking that line. Missions are pretty quick. They are generally, here's a map that is built of a couple of hex pieces that you lay out on a grid and populate as such. There's a randomized deck that's determining what monsters are spawning in and where, so that all happens very quickly. And all of the combat is basically, your weapon has these kind of dice, you roll this much damage, the enemy is resistant to these damage types, and they have somewhere between 1 and 7 health. So there's not big numbers to be dealing with. It's more about, can you get your little mission done and get back before time runs out, while a constant swarm of stuff is randomly spawning at you. And for a dungeon crawler, it manages to be not too many choices for choice paralysis. It keeps a good pace. There's a decent amount of randomization to it. Been having fun. But I jumped back into the video game itself recently, because that game continues years post-release to be adding regular seasons of free content updates, which has been really nice. They've just started their 5th season. Has a couple of new mission types. There's one called Deep Scan that involves triangulating the location of some mining minerals rather than having them sort of visually detected by having to follow a proximity sensor. So you're sort of having to explore and a little more artistically find the thing you're mining for, rather than just I see a glowing blue thing in the wall, that's probably where it is. And then there's a sort of hell elevator monster swarm section toward the end of it, and I think that was pretty fun. It's nice that they've been adding in new enemy types that are spawning in regardless of mission type to keep things feeling fresh. I just enjoy how regularly this game adds enough content to feel like a new experience on a couple of times a year basis. It's been really nice. It is still fundamentally a game that I think works best with other people. It's not a game I play regularly, but a few times a year it will become me and Jane's game for 3 or 4 weeks. We will intensely play it for full weekends at a time and then put it down again. But I'm continuing to have a great time with Deep Rock Galactic. I very much enjoy it. What about you, Steph? You played anything else this week?
I played another free-to-play game. 2 of note came out this week, and there's not a lot else that feels relevant to my particular critical interest. So, what is it called? Zen Zero something.
Oh, Zenless Zone Zero?
That's it, Zenless Zone Zero.
Is this the new thing from the Hoyoverse? I forget what their
I believe
called.
So, yeah. I don't know anything about that universe. I don't know really much about that stuff at all. I just downloaded it to see what it was like.
Genshin Impact, the Genshin Impact people.
Yeah.
That's the fucking game I was trying to remember the name of. Yeah, their games always look really nice. The last one they did, Honkai Star Rail, has space trains, which should be just exactly my thing, but they're microtransaction gacha games, and as such, I'm like, I'm not gonna let myself touch them.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's another gacha game. The same random sort of collection of characters and stuff, which is a shame because the actual gameplay, coming off the back of the First Descendant, it's pretty good. All the characters I've played so far feel quite different from each other. Controls are responsive, quick, satisfying. You have 3 characters at once and switch between them on the fly, and there are certain points where you can switch characters within a time frame to do big attacks. It works really well. It's just a shame I can't recommend it because of the gacha shit.
Yeah, everything I hear about these games is they're pretty good as long as you're okay with gacha, and I'm like,
It's hard to be okay with gacha.
Yeah.
If that stuff was ripped out, this would be a really good game. One of the things I lament with, lamented earlier with the First Descendant, is how really exploitative, arrogant economies that are charging triple digits for shit are largely the domain of truly low-rent games that are like the last kind of game you want to be dropping that much money on, because you wouldn't buy it for that much. Whereas this one is high quality, and I guess that is part of the reason for Genshin Impact's success. There are other reasons. There are other waifu-related reasons.
Yeah.
But as far as free-to-play games go, because I played a little bit of Genshin Impact before the gacha got on my nerves, it's more than competent. They're good. Mechanically, they're good. Zenless Zone Zero feels really good to play. Looks really nice. It's another one of these games where the enemies are kind of nebulous and kind of lacking in personality, but that is sort of made up for by the playable characters, which absolutely brim with, like, visual excitement and stuff. It's a shame. Like, it's a real shame that developer is using its talent for evil, because they got some talented devs there, and it's a shame that their artistic integrity is out the window, or rather, the studio as a whole threw it out the window to do nasty shit, because that's what gacha is. It's nasty shit. It's loot boxes again. But because people call these ones specifically gacha, they've kind of flown under the radar. They've managed to do what some of the Western publishers tried to do, and rebrand loot boxes to dissociate what they're doing from the dirty word. But Genshin Impact has gotten everyone calling it gacha games, and that does have some baggage, but not like Lootbox did. It's almost more like people just roll their eyes and go, ugh, those gacha games. What are we going to do with them? Let's ruffle their hair and send them off with an apple for teacher. It's a shame.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm going to review this particular one. I had to do First Descendant, but I'm not entirely sure on Zenless. Yeah, it's just a game that I have been enjoying mechanically, but the gacha is always there. The loot box, the gambling is always there, scratching at the back of your mind.
Yeah. Right, well, in that case, is that all of the things that we've played this week?
I believe so.
It sounds like so.
Right.
Okay, well, we got a couple of little news stories we can do before we wrap up. In a story that really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, maybe the specific number will be a bit surprising, but like we all in our hearts know this is true. Steam users have spent $19 billion on games that they've never played.
Wait, what? Let's hear that again.
Steam users, people with Steam accounts,
Yep.
have collectively spent $19 billion
Oh my god.
on games that they have never booted up even once.
Those Steam sales paying so many fucking dividends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have some questions about this number, because my big first thought about this is, does this count Steam codes that people got in like a humble bundle?
That was what I was
paid?
wondering, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine this number is like the retail price of the games that have never been booted, and it's probably not what was actually spent, because a lot of these were probably humble bundle games. But fundamentally, I don't think that it's unreasonable to think there is probably a number quite similar to this of unplayed games that have been purchased, because a lot of people do buy a lot of stuff in Steam sales and then just, I'll get around to it, it's only £2, I'll buy it while it's here, and I'll definitely find time for it, and then it just gets lost in the pile of shame.
Yeah, I mean, I hear colloquially, no, that's not the word, I've forgotten words. Either way, I know just talking to a lot of people over the years, so many people talk about the Steam backlog, the phenomena of the Steam backlog. I have such a backlog. I have all these games that I bought in bundles or in Steam sales that I haven't got round to playing and maybe never will. It's so common. But because we sort of, or at least I always hear about it on an individual to individual basis, it doesn't get put in perspective. That puts it in perspective. $19 billion. That is inconceivable, incalculable amounts of money.
It's also weird, because I'm looking at my Steam account. Apparently you can just sort it by recent activity and then scroll down the bottom and there's a no recorded activity section. Some of these are games I know I have played, that as far as Steam is concerned, I never played. And that fascinates me.
Maybe you didn't play them through the Steam launcher? Like, you played them from a different source?
Maybe? Question mark, somehow. But, like, I'm looking at games on here where I'm like, I know for a fact I played Jazzpunk. And as far as Steam is concerned, I never played Jazzpunk.
Like, picked it up somewhere else, played it, and then grabbed it in a Steam sale later. I do that shit, or in a bundle.
Yeah. And I think that adds to that point of, these numbers may be inaccurate to some degree from, oh, you ended up with this in a Steam sale or a Humble Bundle, but you played it somewhere else, so you think you've played it.
I did go and do a quick count, and I have 276 unplayed items in Steam. That also includes soundtracks. Those wind up in that list, and demos that I have attached to my account that I, for whatever reason, didn't play. But, yeah.
I'm pretty proud. My number's 42.
That's impressive.
That's pretty damn small. I'm pretty okay with that.
Yeah. Especially considering how many games you get sent and how many,
Yeah. I try and dip my toes in at least a little bit of everything I get. I'm like, I'll see if there's anything to it.
Yep. Remarkable, though.
Yeah, Play your backlog, everyone. Play some of your fucking backlog. Other stories we've got this week. This is just like an interesting fact because like this is a rare occurrence for DLCs, but Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC that came out recently. Usually DLC player numbers are like dramatically lower than player numbers for the base version of a game because, as we know, statistically most people never finish the games they buy, and like that is a small subset of people. But Shadow of the Erdtree, at least on Steam, peaked at 80% of the way to the base game's peak player count. So, a surprisingly high number of people for DLC have been playing the Erdtree DLC. I don't know what it is, if there's anything special about Elden Ring that would get that number that high, but I just thought it was interesting to see, because that is not a usual number for DLC retention.
Everyone was so invested in that game, though. Like, you all spent 2 months talking about it on this podcast. In depth.
Yeah.
So I can see the promise of more of that experience being a huge draw.
Yeah, I think it just says a lot that, like, enough people actually stuck with this one compared to a lot of FromSoft's earlier ones to get far enough that you could play a DLC and would want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's not usually the case for FromSoft stuff. There's usually a much higher wall, and I wonder how much of that is the shift to open world and the ability to just bugger off and do something else if you hit a bit of a progression block.
Yeah, I suspect that's probably in a lot of ways the case. It's almost as if making the content accessible results in more engagement and interest from players.
Yeah, something like that.
Huh.
And we have one last story this week. You know how Nintendo recently, they've been coming after the emulators, coming after the ROMs, coming after all the mods for games, they've been a little bit like that recently. Nintendo's after your porn now.
What?
They're gonna take away your porn!
But I enjoy pornographic material.
Well, Nintendo doesn't want... Well, look, they don't mind generally if you enjoy porn, but Nintendo character porn... No, not allowed. Naughty, naughty, stop looking at Mario with his huge dick out. That's not okay.
Oh, no. Who was that streamer? There was a streamer on, like, Chatterbait or something. It was Yoshi getting railed, or Luigi getting... Cosplay Carrie.
Old friend of the show, one of the shows I've done.
Bless their heart.
Cosplay Carrie. Yeah, became something of a phenomenon in our little community for a while. God, don't know where she may be. Might still be at it, I don't know. I watched them I watched her dressed as Ronald McDonald pegging the Hamburglar once. He was saying "robble, robble." It was one of the most incredible sights I've ever seen.
Well, sites like that won't be in your future if Nintendo's got anything to say about it. Because there was recently a shareholder Q&A done with Nintendo, and President Furukawa was questioned by a shareholder who said, in his words, he had come across cases on social media where Nintendo IP and games are used inappropriately, which poses the risk of damaging the company's brands. And then he asked the president of Nintendo, what are you planning to do about it? What are you going to do about the fact I can see Princess Peach's Norks on the internet? What are you going to do about it?
This is some kind of, like, Puritan on a personal crusade to eliminate porn and trying to, like, go at it from a business manipulation perspective. And I respect the planning and approach, if that's the case. Because that's you know, I hate the player. I really do, but their game is strong.
Yeah. The president of Nintendo, his response was, we believe that appropriate action must be taken against any behavior that undermines this policy. Our goal is to create an environment where everyone can enjoy playing our games, except the horny people.
Yeah, what about those with crushing porno addictions?
Yeah.
What about them?
What about them?
They can't enjoy anything that isn't porn.
Yeah.
Won't someone think of Kanye West?
We will continue to make every effort to ensure that our consumers are not made to feel uncomfortable, not only in our games, but also anywhere they come into contact with our IP. Let Mario have big tits on the internet. Let people draw Mario with big tits.
It's all anybody's ever really wanted.
Right.
Yeah. Let Bowser have, like, 13 cocks in a picture. How's that hurting you, Nintendo? If anything, it's making him seem more powerful and threatening, which is really, you know, the brand image you're trying to build for him. So that's it. That's all I got for you today.
Okay, I understand, like, not wanting brand association, but nobody thinks Nintendo approves of this. Nobody ever thinks Nintendo approves. That's part of the allure of it, is that you know Nintendo doesn't approve of it. So you could just let it go, but instead, you, the toy makers, are being the fun police. And that just doesn't make sense from a business perspective.
This has reminded me of a fact that I forgot about, which is that Nintendo owns the rights to 2 Super Mario-themed porns from the 90s.
Snapped them up.
Yeah, Super Hornio Brothers and Super Hornio Brothers 2. So Nintendo's like, no Mario porn unless we can own it and keep it in the vault where only we can watch it.
And they do.
Only we can see the adventures of programmer Squeegee Hornio and his brother Ornio Hornio teleported into Squeegee's in-development PC game after a freak power overload.
They hang out with the investment bankers who wound up with that Wu-Tang album, and they all hang out and have a little party together with their lost media.
They all hang out. Doug Bowser cracks it out, and they all have a goon.
You know, every now and then they gotta watch the story of King Pooper kidnapping Princess Perlina, trying to force Perlina to travel to Earth with a tub full of semen energized by a special generator.
God, I love porn
I don't know what the
plots.
special generator does, but
We were watching The Mole, which is a reality competition series where they're doing challenges to earn money, but there's one player in the group that's actually trying to prevent them from earning money, and they're trying to figure out who it is. It's a fun little show. And Linda and I got off onto a porn parody idea called The Hole, and I won't repeat it because it requires a level of heteronormativity that I just don't think is appropriate here. But I think we missed our calling. I think we should have been writing porn scripts. I truly do.
It's never too late.
I mean, it's not too late. Like, I've been trying to get more writing gigs, and I ain't particularly fussy about what I take. You know, so long as it's not exploitative as, say, a free-to-play game. Which means porn is within the limits.
Have we done it?
I think we have.
I think we've done it. I think we're as close as we're gonna get.
Nintendo may be cracking down while Doug Bowser cracks one off. But Laura, you like to crack your knuckles and get down to work, the nitty-gritty. And may we hear about the fruits of your labour and where we may partake?
You can find the stuff I do on the internet at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Laura K. Buzz on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills, Blue Sky, Mastodon, all sorts of places. The big thing I got coming up this week is I've got an episode of Accessibility, going into real depth on designing accessibility settings with non-disabled people in mind, and going into the social model of disability, temporary disability, and situational disability, and how those all sort of create a web where, while you might not necessarily be designing first and foremost accessibility stuff for non-disabled people, there are situations a non-disabled person can be in that will basically give them the same needs and solutions as a permanently disabled person in terms of accessibility. I'm really happy with this video. I really hope people check it out. It's a bit of a meaty dive into some pretty specific disability discussions, but I really hope people sort of go with me and check this one out. What about you, Conrad? Where are you at on the internet?
Oh, you can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Instagram and Blue Sky. If you're an adult film producer who's interested in my screenplay for The Hole, hit me up. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda that I make at mercenarycreative.com, and everything that I do online is funded through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon?
Who?
Stephanie Sterling.
That is correct. Patreon.com/Jimquisition, which supports this show and the Jimquisition and all of that. Do check the Jimquisition out this week if you are so inclined. It's called Disability, Accessibility, and the Discourse that something. But it's about disability. It's not going to be as extensive as what Laura's working on, but it would be a nice primer. And it's received a lot of positive commentary from the people who aren't dickheads. Thank you so much. Fab. Thank you. I'm proud of the past couple weeks of ones, actually. Also, Z-Man Zilla, our co-editor, has done such a fucking bang-up job as well. Killing it.
Absolutely. Some of the cuts are so choice and coming from a level of obscurity that I'm so frequently startled by. They're remarkable.
Oh yeah, there are ones I think only you get.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Some deep pulls and some great Bruce Lee visual puns. Because I end up using a lot of words that end in Lee. Good stuff. I also have been coming back to streaming. I started, I had a stream last week. I had one yesterday at the time of talking, and I'm hoping to have one or two more this week. Really trying to knuckle down on streaming. As some people know, I had a big mental health crisis first half of this year. Led to a lot of executive dysfunction, and if you have executive dysfunction, if you fall out of habit with something, sometimes it's hard to get back into it. So I'm making myself get back into it. So yeah, Twitch TV/Jim Sterling. My next wrestling date is in Leeds. I'll be there for True Grit Wrestling at Left Bank. That is July 20th. Saturday, July 20th. Look up True Grit Wrestling on social media and stuff like that. You'll get ticket details. And that's that. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting and sharing all of that good stuff. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.